If you've ever experienced times or moments where you feel like your motivation has disappeared, you're not lazy. It's because of one of these five hidden reasons why we often feel unmotivated. So in this episode, we're going to look at what motivation is and how you can fix it so you can feel more motivated to do the things you want to do. But firstly, let's look at what motivation is. I think people see it as this elusive thing that you either have or you don't have. And in fact, the reason I've come on to record this is because I've just come off a conversation with a client where we were talking about motivation and how they're struggling and how they feel like they failed because they're not doing the things that they want to do. And it isn't because they're not motivated. They're very driven. They're very successful. They're very accomplished in their own right already. But we just sometimes experience times or moments where motivation fades, it disappears, or it collapses. And I think the first thing to acknowledge is that motivation is a feeling. There's a great quote by the late Zig Ziglar that says that motivation doesn't last, neither does bathing, which is why it's recommended daily. So if you think about motivation, something that can fluctuate, something that we can always strengthen, to boost, to reinforce, then that then helps us to then put things in place to help give it a lift and approach this in the same way as I do all the other mind fitness tools, techniques, and strategies. Simply see it as something that you can develop and enhance. As I've said before, time and time again, you don't go for a walk once, or you don't eat one healthy meal and say, right, that's my health and eating sorted, I don't ever need to do that again. What we do on a regular basis helps nurture and support how we feel, and motivation is no different. But there are often reasons and times and experiences that we encounter that cause our motivation to be impacted. So what we want to look at today is what those five things are, and also what you can then alternatively, on the opposite side of that, do to help give your motivation a boost and a lift when you experience one of those moments when you could do with that little extra boost. So I've just made a list of the five things that I've come up with. It's not exhaustive. There will be others. Some of them might come in here, but we're just going to look at these. And the first one, which fits into my Sort Your Headshot Out program, which is outdated thinking. We're simply running to thoughts that no longer serve us. We're thinking about things that we used to do. We're thinking about the things that we don't want. We're thinking about things that we feel that we can't do. And when we get stuck in that loop of negativity, worry, stress, catastrophizing, then that absolutely drains that feeling that we call motivation. So if you think of that feeling like the charge indicator, maybe on your phone or some other device, and when we're in times when we're worrying and stressing and overthinking, then we're kind of using up that energy. So it's not a fixed resource. It's something that we can take credit out of, and we can put credit in and we can take out of. So yeah, number one is our outdated thinking, and similarly, number two is depleted energy. When our energy is low, then we don't feel like doing those things. So it isn't necessarily that we're lazy, it's just that we're running on empty. So to think about what we can do to give our energy a boost, what are we doing on a regular basis? What are we doing on a daily basis to give ourselves a boost in energy? What are we eating, how are we sleeping? Again, linked to the first one, what are we thinking about? So be deliberate, be purposeful, be intentional about what we're doing to help change our thinking, but also to give our energy a boost as well. Number three is lack of clarity. Lack of clarity plays such a big part in how we feel. And if we're focused on what we don't want, or we haven't got clarity on what we do want, then that can kind of be using up that emotional energy as well. So the flip side is take some time to get clear on what you want, and also what your next step is. Often we get overwhelmed by the lack of clarity, usually because either we feel like we've got too many things to do, and we get paralyzed by that and we don't do anything, or we just don't know what to do next. So look at it from those two perspectives. Make sure you're clear on what it is that you want. Make sure you're clear on what your next step is, and then start to take action towards it. And number 4, again, these are all linked in, but it's kind of pressure over alignment. We're pushing through, we're hustling, we're almost working too hard to try and get motivation. But if the mind is running to out of date goals, beliefs, thoughts, then it's just getting harder. So doing the other things we've spoken about, getting alignment and getting clarity on what you want, doing things to kind of boost your energy and thinking thoughts that are going to align with all of that is just going to make things feel and be that much easier. So ask yourself, are you working and pushing through pressure right now, or are you connected and aligned to what you actually want rather than what you don't want? And then number 5, again, all linked in, is outdated identity. And it's a key part of my sort your head shite out framework, because if we're running to out of date beliefs, how we think about ourselves, the identity we hold, if that is out of date, whether that be only a few months, whether that be years, years and years out of date, which is often the case, then we've got that internal friction and resistance, which is going to be using our kind of energy, which then impacts our motivation. So if your mind is thinking and wanting one thing, but your inner identity is running to that out of date programming, then that is naturally going to impact your motivation. So there you go. There's the top 5 things, just having a quick think myself after the conversation I've just had with a client about the kind of 5 major things that I find with the work with my clients and personally that can impact our feelings of motivation, and how we can then feel and be more motivated to do the things we want to do, rather than kind of beating ourselves up for being lazy or thinking, well, I obviously don't want it enough because why am I not doing it? And it's just that internal conflict between the 2 parts of your mind that are not connected and aligned together. So there's some things that you can do to help. And also another good exercise to revisit if you haven't done it before, or if you have done it before, it's a good opportunity to revisit it. And that's the 3 W's. Give yourself a couple of moments to think about where you are currently, have that honest conversation with yourself, where you're at right now, what's working, what isn't working, what you're happy with, what you're unhappy with. If you stay as you are, what are the consequences? Do that, but then move on to the second phase, which is getting clarity on what you actually do want. So if you're an expert and you know what you don't want, if you just stay stuck there, nothing's going to change. So flip it around and ask yourself the opposite. Well, what do I actually want then? When you get clarity on what you want, then it becomes much easier for the mind to then help you and support you in making that happen. And then the third one, which really links in probably more than any to the motivation, is to connect to your why. Your why is your emotional fuel, your charge, your momentum, your motivation to actually go do it. So if you haven't quite connected to it, often, and again, I see it quite a lot when I work with clients, is they know what they want. Most people I see do know what they want to achieve, but for some reason, something's not working. And it's usually because they haven't connected enough to why they want it. When you connect and get clarity on what you want and why you want it, then that resistance tends to fade away. And then on the flip side, your motivation, your drive, your fuel kicks in. And if you think about, I said, motivation is just a feeling, it's just almost like an emotion. Emotion stands for energy in motion. So when you connect to that energy of what's important to you, then you'll start to move and take action towards making it happen. So really important to kind of take some time to give that some thought. So there you go. There's the 5 top reasons why we often find that our motivation fades, and a few things that you can do to help give yourself a boost. And, when people experience times when they feel like they're running on empty or even burnout, it is because of that internal kind of conflict that's going on. So one of the best, most effective things you can do to help yourself is to reset, to refocus your mind, get in the habit of doing that regularly, and then doing those lifestyle strategies, those mind fitness strategies on a regular basis that help to give you the reset, but also help to give you a boost. So let me know in the comments, what's one thing that's been kind of depleting, that's been knocking your motivation lately? And now, having watched this episode, what's one thing you're going to start to do to help give your motivation a boost so that you can go on to do and achieve the things that you want to do. Remember, when you reset your mind, when you refocus your mind, everything becomes easier. So take the time, invest the time to do that on a regular basis, and notice what a difference it makes for you. Take care for now.